The most powerful man on earth is dying, and he's only 32 years old. His generals crowd the bed with one question: who gets it all? As the story goes, he answers in 3 words: to the strongest. Then he is gone. His generals look at each other, and they take him literally. Here is what I keep coming back to. Conquering the world and keeping it are 2 completely different skills, and Alexander only ever mastered the first one. Here is the strange part. This was the largest empire the world had yet seen, built in about 13 years by a man who, by some accounts, never lost a single battle. And it took his own men less than 2 years to start ripping it apart. So, how does the biggest thing anyone had ever built vanish almost the moment its maker dies? That is the question this whole story is counting down to. And it ends in that room in Babylon. But to understand how it fell, you have to see how it was built. And here is the first thing nobody tells you. Alexander did not build his war machine. His father did. Rewind to 359 BC. A man named Philip becomes king of Macedon. Macedon is a rough, half-wild kingdom on the edge of the Greek world, sneered at by the Polish cities to the south. Philip changes everything. He takes an army of maybe 10,000 foot soldiers and builds it into 24,000. He grows the cavalry from a few hundred horsemen into thousands. He turns farmers into professionals. Paid, drilled, uniformed, sworn by oath to the king. Then he hands them a new weapon, the sarissa, a pike roughly 18 feet long, twice the reach of a normal Greek spear. Picture a wall of men, and out of that wall, several rows of iron points bristle forward all at once. You cannot get near them. And while those pikes pin you in place, Philip's elite horsemen, the companion cavalry, come crashing into your flank. Hammer and anvil, that was the machine. In 338 BC, Philip tested at Charonea. Athens and Thebes throw their best at him, including the legendary Sacred Band of Thebes. Philip destroys them, and a teenage boy leads a charge that day. He's 18. His name is Alexander. Philip is now master of Greece, and he's planning something enormous: to invade Persia, the superpower of the age. But he never gets to go. In 336 BC, at a wedding, Philip's own bodyguard steps forward and stabs him dead. So the throne, the army, the whole grand plan, all of it lands on a 20-year-old. Half of Greece assumes the boy will crumble. They are wrong. This boy was tutored as a teenager by Aristotle himself, one of the sharpest minds who ever lived. And when Greece tests him, he moves so fast and so hard that the whole country falls back into line. Then he does the unthinkable. He takes his father's plan and his father's army, and he crosses into Asia. He's going after the largest empire on earth with maybe 40 to 50,000 men. And here is the part nobody tells you. That army is tiny next to what Persia can throw at him. He is betting everything on winning fast. There is no plan B. There is no going home. 334 BC. He crosses into Asia and wins his first great victory at a river called the Granicus. Asia Minor swings open. 333 BC, he meets the Persian king himself, Darius III, at the head of a far larger army, at a narrow coastal place called Issus. Alexander charges straight at him, and the king of kings panics. He turns his chariot and runs, leaving his own mother, his wife, and his children behind on the field. Then comes the wall. Tyre, an island fortress out in the sea, and it will not surrender. So Alexander does something insane. He builds a road across the ocean. His army hauls rubble half a mile out into the water to reach the walls. 7 months later, Tyre falls. Egypt does not even fight. It opens its gates. And on the Nile, Alexander founds a city and stamps his own name on it. Alexandria. Remember that name? It outlives everything. 331 BC, the rematch. Gaugamela. Darius has raised another vast army, far bigger than Alexander's 40,000. It does not matter. Alexander punches a gap in the Persian line, drives straight for the king, and Darius flees a second time. The Persian Empire, 200 years old, is finished. The treasure cities fall like dominoes: Babylon, Susa, Persepolis. And in the ceremonial heart of Persia, Alexander burns the great palace to the ground. Darius does not even die a king. His own men murder him on the run. Now there is no rival left anywhere. Alexander is hailed king of Asia. But he does not stop. He pushes east into years of brutal, grinding war in the mountains of Central Asia. Somewhere in there, he marries a noblewoman named Roxana. Remember her too. And then, In 326 BC in India, at a river called the Hyphasis, he meets a king named Porus. And something Alexander has never faced before: war elephants, dozens of them, a wall of great giants. It is the bloodiest fight of his entire life, and he wins it. Even the elephants are not enough. But this victory costs him something. Here is the part nobody tells you about the man who conquered the world. His war horse, Bucephalus, the stallion he tamed as a boy, the horse that carried him across an empire, dies here in India. And Alexander, master of Persia, builds an entire city just to mark the grave of a horse. Alexander wants to keep going. East, always east, chasing the edge of the world. His men do not. And here, at a muddy river in India, the man who beat Persia finally meets the one enemy he cannot defeat: his own army. Imagine you have followed one man for 8 years. You have marched through 70 straight days of monsoon rain. Your gear is rotting off your body. And now you hear that ahead of you wait even larger armies and even more elephants. So you stop. You simply refuse to take one more step east. That is what happens. The whole army sits down and says no. Alexander rages. He shuts himself in his tent for days, waiting for them to change their minds. They do not. And for the first time in his life, Alexander the Great has to turn around and go home. But the way home nearly finishes what the enemy could not. He marches a huge part of his army through the Gedrosian desert. Blistering heat, no water, no food. And here's the cruel part. By some accounts, more of his soldiers died crossing that one desert than in all his famous battles combined. Not to Persians, not to elephants, to sand and thirst. He makes it back to Babylon. He is only 32 years old. And this is the moment the whole story has been counting down to. In June of 323 BC, after a banquet, Alexander falls ill. A fever takes hold. For 10, maybe 11 days, it burns through him. And here's something we still argue about today. We do not actually know how he died. Some say it was natural, typhoid or malaria from the swamps around Babylon. Others whisper it was poison, slipped to him by men in his own circle. The evidence has never settled it. But the real disaster is not the fever. It is what is missing. Alexander is dying, and there is no one to inherit. Think about that. He conquered the world, and he never secured the one thing that actually mattered. His son is not even born yet. Roxana is still pregnant. His only other male relative is a half-brother named Philip, who is intellectually disabled and cannot rule. The most powerful man alive has no heir. So his generals crowd around the bed and ask the only question left: who gets the empire? And as the story goes, Alexander gives that final fatal answer: to the strongest. Now, historians are not even sure he said it. Some sources say he was already past speaking and simply pressed his signet ring into the hand of a general named Perdiccas. But whether he said the words or not barely matters, because the strongest is exactly who fought for it. Alexander's body is barely cold when the carving begins. Within days, at a meeting called the Partition of Babylon, the generals slice up the empire like a map spread across a dinner table. Ptolemy grabs Egypt. Lysimachus takes Thrace. Antigonus seizes a chunk of Asia. Perdiccas rules as regent for two puppet kings, the unborn baby and the disabled brother. For a moment, they pretend it is still one empire. It is not. They turn on each other. For over 40 years, Alexander's best friends and finest generals, the men who conquered the world side by side, hunt and kill each other across it. History calls them the Diadochi, the successors. And then they do something colder than any battle. They erase the bloodline. Alexander's half-brother, the puppet king, is executed. And around 310 BC, his young son and his widow Roxana, remember her, are quietly murdered in secret. Within about 13 years of Alexander's death, his entire family is gone, deliberately wiped out. The empire he built to last forever could not outlive one single man. But here is the twist. Not everything he built died with him. The wreckage finally settles into three great kingdoms: Ptolemaic Egypt, the Seleucid Empire in the east, and Antigonid Macedon. And even as the generals fought, something spread out of the ruins. Greek language, Greek cities, Greek art and ideas carried all the way from Egypt to the edge of India. We call it the Hellenistic Age. And it lasted for 300 years. And that name from the beginning, Alexandria, grew into the greatest city of the ancient world, home to a library that tried to hold the sum of human knowledge. Even Alexander's body became a prize. Ptolemy stole the corpse, carried it to Egypt, and turned it into a shrine. Roman emperors would come just to stand at his tomb. Think about that. His empire fell apart in front of his own generals. But the man himself, they worshipped. So here is the strange truth of Alexander the Great. He built the largest empire the world had yet seen, and it survived him by barely 2 years. He is the ultimate proof that conquering the world is one thing and keeping it is another thing entirely. He mastered the first and he never even attempted the second. The most powerful man on earth had 3 words for who should inherit it all, to the strongest. And in the end, that turned out to be no one. And that is the part that stays with me. We hand out the word great for what a person can take. But the skill that actually decides whether any of it lasts, Alexander never even tried to learn. Next time on Great Empires of History, we leave the world conquerors behind and walk into one ordinary Roman town, living quietly in the shadow of a mountain. A city that had no idea it was living on borrowed time. This is Pompeii, and the day the sky turned to fire. Subscribe and come with us. We are telling the whole rise and fall of the ancient world, one empire at a time. The strongest survived. The story did not have to.